Hello, good morning, everyone. We're so glad you could make it today. We are doing our webinar on social media and your career today. This was a popular topic. We did a poll, I think, on our first webinar that asked people what they were interested in hearing about, and this was by far the #1 choice. So hopefully we can provide you with some good information today. I am the senior recruiter here at GeoSearch. My name is Jessica Touchard. I'm joined by Chelsea Bonini, and she is our digital content manager, and you will see a lot of her LinkedIn posts and our job postings advertised by Chelsea. And then Dave Hall is joining us. He's with a company called WSI, and he's a professional digital marketer, so he can give us that perspective. Next slide. So we are going to be just, all of your mics are currently muted. And I did want to test the chat box though, because we've sometimes had some technical difficulties. So if everybody could kind of type in where they are from in the chat box, that's a good way to communicate with us throughout this webinar. You can also put any of your questions that you may have as things come up in the Q&A box. We'll be watching both of those. So I don't see any messages coming in the chat. Are any of you able to utilize that at all? I'm not sure if it's working. I've got one in the Q&A from John from Denver. Okay, so that's where you would enter your questions. And then we also have a chat box in case you want to make any comments or questions there as well. Hopefully that's working too. I don't see anything coming in. But if not, just use the Q&A. We will be answering questions probably mostly at the end today, but if it's relevant to what we're speaking about, I'll certainly interrupt and start. Someone's asking, Dave, someone's asking where the chat box is.
It should be that small rectangular box on the right side of their screen. It's a control panel.
Okay. Anyway, I see somebody also from Rochester, New York, so welcome. And Denver, and we've got a few others that I haven't heard from yet. So hopefully they can find those, find where to enter those eventually here. But it looks like it is working. At least the Q&A is. All Next
right.
slide. So our agenda today, we're going to cover some of the most common social media tools, how to best present yourself with those tools, and a little bit about job search and recruiting strategies, whether you're looking for a new position or new people to talk to about positions within your company. And also some pitfalls to be aware of, and then we'll go into our Q&A discussion. Okay. I'm going to launch a poll right now for everybody here. We would like to find out a little bit about what social networking channels you're currently using right now and what you use most often, I guess, would be the main question. And we're thinking of this from a professional perspective, so what you use in your career most often. 100% so far, LinkedIn. So as things come in, so far, that's pretty much the one that most people are utilizing. And we've got almost everybody has voted too. So there's a few that haven't, but hopefully they're able to find those buttons in that control panel. So LinkedIn is certainly the most popular career site, and I was kind of expecting that answer. So hopefully we'll be able to engage some other platforms now. Okay. I'm going to turn off my camera. We're all going to kind of allow you to view the slides here, and we will start with our presentation.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jessica. This is Chelsea speaking. And the first thing we're going to discuss is how to clean up your act. The first thing you'll want to do is Google yourself to see what pops up. Do you have any negative information out there, or are you ranking on Google at all? If you do see negative information about yourself and you're able to delete that content from a page that you manage, make sure you do that. If there's something out there about you that you can't control, then we recommend that you create social media profiles and maintain those on a regular basis. The more present you are online, the higher ranking you'll be on Google. The only thing we want to make you aware of, though, is to only create as many platforms as you have time for. So we don't want you to create all these different social media channels and then not being able to maintain those. If you are on LinkedIn and you don't have negative information out there, your profile will most likely rank near the top of that Google search. And lastly, we want you to check your privacy settings on Facebook and Twitter. You can manage your privacy settings so that only friends and select groups can view your posts. Next slide, please. Great, thank you. And so what tools are most effective? We have 3 that we recommend that are most useful in a professional setting. Most of you had already said you have LinkedIn accounts, and that's great. Another tool would be Facebook and Twitter. These we have seen to work best when maintaining your professional lifestyle, as well as those who are seeking new employment. So LinkedIn is our #1 resource when it comes to networking and utilizing that network to find a job or to keep in the know with industry news and updates. Oops, I'm still on the, yep, thanks, Dave. We have seen that there are about 530 million current users, and it's considered the top spot for people looking for work. Facebook is primarily a social network, but these are your friends and family, and they may have good leads for you. And Twitter is another one. It's a great way to connect with groups through circles of contacts. Okay, so as I mentioned, Facebook is more of a social network, but almost everyone is on Facebook. So you can use this to your advantage by reaching out to friends and family on a regular basis. We recommend posting on an average of 2 to 3 times a week on this platform. As a minimum. You can of course do more, but we recommend as a minimum of at least 2 to 3 times a week on Facebook. And you may have friends or you yourself be posting about what you're having for lunch that day, or pictures of your night out at a bachelor party, which is all fine of course on Facebook. But just remember that potential employers might be looking at your page, so you'll want to keep things professional. And they're usually able to do this if you don't have your privacy settings selected for friends and family only. So that's why you want to go in and make sure you're checking out your privacy settings. There are ways to go about your job search on Facebook, though, that are more professional. You can join groups of people with common interests and network with them within that group. When you do that, you just want to be aware of your settings when you're posting an update. You need to select what group you're wanting to post it in so it doesn't go on your personal news feed. And you can also use lists to separate your personal contacts from your professional contacts. So you'll want to name it something like professional connections. Like we have here. And then another option is to use private messaging to communicate with relevant people within your network.
Okay, thanks, Chelsea. This is, oh, I'm getting quite a bit of so Twitter is one of those kind of mystery platforms, I feel, that may not be the social platform that first comes to mind for a job search. But 92% of companies are using Twitter for hiring and networking in the professional community. So we do want to introduce you to this platform a little bit and just at least give you an idea of how it may be a tool that you can use. So Twitter is a live-time platform. It is something that can be difficult to keep up with if you're not somebody that is able to be on top of communication all of the time, which we're learning is more and more invasive into our society as we go, but Twitter does allow you to connect with anyone. You can connect with anybody in your professional network. You can connect with friends. You can connect with our president. You can connect with a real housewife of New York if you want. So anybody that you want to follow, you are able to communicate directly with that person. But how does that relate to your job search? Well, you can join industry chats, and there are actually scheduled chats that you can go to this tweetreports.com that I found that will give you a list of specific topics that are going to be discussed at specific times. They have moderators that help that conversation go smoothly and keep it on a professional level. So those can be some interesting things to learn about companies or technologies that are coming out in our field, as well as stand out professionally by joining in on some of those conversations. The hardest part for me with Twitter has been to be able to find better content. And I have found over kind of some trial and error that you can group together people and have all of their tweets come to one feed and have another professional network come in on a different feed. And this allows you to kind of keep up with conversations without having to be on it constantly to understand what's happening. You can kind of go check that feed later and read everyone's comments and chime in if necessary. And there are apps to make you do that, or to help you do that, and to help you keep those lists and content a little bit separated. Also, using Twitter lists is a wonderful way to do this. TweetDeck is something that I recently found that helps you bookmark people. You add them on a list, and then those conversations that those people have will be in a separate space than maybe the Real Housewives or the president or whoever else you're watching. So those are some beginner tips to Twitter. I can't claim to be an expert there, but I do know that every time I engage on there, it's got some really interesting and intelligent conversations regarding the geospatial industry, particularly and certainly within career and recruiting. So we wanted to be sure we mentioned that. Now, LinkedIn, as most of you know, is probably our #1 platform used by job seekers and companies and hiring managers because it provides us with the most professional networking tools. You are able to research companies on LinkedIn, hiring managers. You can find out their names, what they've been posting about lately, where they sit geographically. Those kinds of things can be really helpful to you, especially if you're entering into an interview situation or you're thinking about applying for a position. If you are a job seeker, we always, well, actually, anytime in your career, we encourage you to join professional groups and chime in on those conversations, because this can be a really good way to get your name out there, get noticed if you are a job seeker, but also kind of brand yourself as a professional within the geospatial community as you're talking about these topics, and get noticed in that way too. So when something interesting comes up at a company, you may be somebody that they contact for information or for a new promotion or something like that. If you are in the job market, make sure your LinkedIn profile includes your resume. We often recommend also that you link out to any work samples. You can upload files as well if that's if your work samples are not humongous humongous maps, but they're white papers or other things that you may be able to upload there. And then reach out to your network for endorsements, whether it's your professors if you're in school, any coworkers, professional affiliations. Endorsements really say something about you on your page, and it also makes, when somebody endorses you, I believe you kind of show up again at the top of the feed and saying, somebody has endorsed your connection. And then if you're a professional that has a lot of experience, LinkedIn is a great place to use as extra space from your resume. So if you have a professional resume and you have a link to your LinkedIn, you can there tout a little bit more about your clients. You can tell a little bit more about what the company you're working for does, because that's typical information on LinkedIn. So you can utilize that space as kind of an extra page on your resume and believe me, companies are certainly taking a look at that. So next slide, please. So in order to network, you really want to reach out to first, second, and third connections anytime you're looking for information or advice or introductions to people who may be looking for new employees, or if you are a manager looking for potential candidates. This is certainly a technique we utilize here at GeoSearch, that we are constantly communicating with this network and seeing who they know who may be interested in X, Y, or Z position, or if you're looking to find opportunities within your city or within a particular niche. It's a great way to be able to reach out to hiring managers. LinkedIn also allows you to select an option in settings called Open to New Opportunities. This is kind of an under the radar way to communicate to recruiters and to people who may be looking on LinkedIn, to let potential employers know that you're looking, but without advertising to the world that you're looking. So this is certainly something that I recommend for people who are currently and happily employed and would not want that getting back to their employer. However, they may be looking for that next step in their career. Maybe they're considering relocating for some reason or another. And so this is a wonderful way to get kind of into that sphere of recruiters without advertising it to the world. I believe you can also put location preferences on there. So when you're open to new opportunities, only remote opportunities, or open to new opportunities, only contract, only in Florida, whatever. So you can kind of set some preferences there as well. And then if you're actively in the market, don't forget there's some great job postings on LinkedIn. Believe me, companies are paying big bucks to post there. They want to hear from you. They're kind of nice because they give you usually an idea of who is advertising for this position. You can easily get to their website, research the company at the same time as you're applying. So LinkedIn job postings are an excellent source for your job search as well.
Okay, a few tips about LinkedIn. This should go without saying, but I'm not sure that it does. Make sure you have a professional headshot. This is your professional network that you're on. So avoid things like, cropping out a picture of you in your sunglasses next to somebody with their arm there. A picture with your daughter is a cute picture, but it's better for Facebook. That next picture in with it all white, it's really hard to see the person in that picture. Again, the couple, that's great for Facebook, but whose profile is it? The classic, webcam shot, I don't have time for professional headshot, so I'll just shoot it off of my webcam. And I don't know if the next one was Halloween or what was going on there, and then just a graphic. Having a headshot is helpful. It lets people know you have a complete profile and that you're serious about your LinkedIn presence. The next thing down on your profile is that headline. Make sure it's one that communicates what your target market gets from your services. You want to put some keywords in there because LinkedIn is keyword search on Google just like everything else is. And you can form a sentence with these simple questions. What do you do? Who do you help? And what problem do you solve? Using those answers, you can put them together into one caption for your headline. And it can look something like this. Here's my LinkedIn profile, and I'm a digital marketing consultant serving CEOs and business owners who want more leads for their business. Who am I? What do I do? Who do I do it for? Below that is the place for the summary. And if you need some guidance on how to fill that out, you can do a Q&A format, which I have on my profile, or just use questions like these to help guide you in filling in your profile. Lay out, who you are. And I think some personal information that would be appropriate would be helpful there to humanize you for people that are looking for someone like you for culture fit. And then who do you help or serve? What is it that you do? What is your expertise? What are those things that you excel at? And what makes you different from everybody else that is in your field doing what you do? Lastly, why do you want people to connect with you? So I think we're ready for another poll and looking at social media as it relates to your overall career. So do you find it harmful, neither harmful nor helpful, helpful, necessary, or very necessary?
I think this is really important because many of the things that we're hearing in the news right now, and people have had different experiences over their career, kind of thinking about how it really helps and how it doesn't. And most people here are answering, Dave, that it is helpful. Some are answering that it's necessary, at least. And I think that the benefits outweigh the risks for most people, and I tend to agree with that.
All right, we'll close the poll down.
Yeah.
And share those results there. 71% of you find that it is helpful, and then some of you are neutral. Some of you think it's necessary, but nobody's really on an extreme end one way or the other.
Good, good. Okay, so one of the more interesting topics, I think, on social media is just to be aware of some pitfalls. And we all know about the pitfalls of the late night party pictures, or, you know, being too crazy in your opinions or something like that on a professional network. But there's some other kind of more minor, what I would call pitfalls, that may not be as obvious. And one of the things is just understanding the platform that you're using. So anything, for instance, on LinkedIn, anything you like or comment on is then visible to your entire network, and it's kind of broadcast to your entire network. I, for a while, was an internal recruiter at a defense contractor. And one time I liked a GeoSearch post. This was during the kind of the recession era when we weren't so busy, and I had taken a position to help a company grow. And as soon as I liked that GeoSearch post, it was not 30 seconds later that my boss was coming in and asking me if I was, you know, still involved with GeoSearch and am I still working for them and all of that. And at the time, I was not. I was actually, you know, contracted to this particular company for a particular amount of time, and I was honoring that. But all I had done was just like a comment and liked a job that we post. So it's just very important that you're aware. I've also seen people, you know, there's people who use LinkedIn unprofessionally, and I've seen some of my very professional connections comment about, you know, this is not a great place to post this, please refrain from these types of posts. Well, then that puts that unprofessional post right on the top of their own feed. So you just want to be aware that anything you like or comment on is visible to your entire network. If something's bothering you or it's not professional, my suggestion is to scroll on by and either hide that person from your feed or just ignore it. Another pitfall that can come up is on Facebook. Over the years, we have all connected with friends and who are also coworkers. And we need to remember that as if we do decide to put ourselves back into the job market, that some of our friends on Facebook may also be coworkers. That's also true if you're really ticked off about something that happened in the office today or whatever. Just beware when you're posting that whose eyes that is going to, and that it's never gone. We tell our kids that and everything. It's never deletable. It's searchable. And we're finding more and more about that this week. So just make sure that you are really understanding the information and the people that you are posting out to. And then this is more of a information, I guess. When I said too much information can poison the well, what I mean by this is that many of us are going into interviews or we're going into hiring new individuals for our company, and we have more access to more information about those companies and individuals than we ever have in the past. We can scan social networking and find out a lot about that, which is very informative many times, but can also actually, skew our vision or our opinion of a company or a person before they've really had a chance to make an impression. So if you're going into an interview with an employer, for instance, I do recommend scanning social network. I recommend visiting their website. I recommend, looking into current things that they're doing now, maybe with the size of the company, that kind of thing. At this stage, before an interview, I do not recommend contacting ex-employees and seeing what their opinions are of the company, or talking about, even current employees and talking about that, because we're just not at that stage yet. I think there's an appropriate place and time if you are presented with an offer, for instance, to maybe contact somebody that may be your peer and say, hey, I've been offered this position. How do you like it? What has your experience been? But keep those things professional and don't ask about salaries. Don't ask about, different things like that, because that could get your offer withdrawn before you even get to a chance to accept it. And then also, if you're talking to disgruntled ex-employees, especially if you're doing that before an interview process, you can end up, learning things you don't want to learn yet, and you're going into that interview with a very skewed perception. So I would just be careful of that. Get your own take first, get your own impression first, allow that company to make the impression they want. Things may have changed over time. So it's just fair to do that. And I say the same thing to our employers. When you're bringing somebody in for an interview, I don't recommend that they actually scan their social networking first. For one thing, it can bring up equal opportunity issues, because on LinkedIn, we have our pictures, so they know our gender, they know our race, they know our approximate age by our picture, that kind of thing. So it can be a potential pitfall for an employer as well to, somebody could claim I was not brought in to the interview because, I'm older, or because I'm a woman, or whatever. So it's just very necessary that we keep our hiring practices in mind before that. Now, once you've extended or are thinking about extending an offer to somebody, I think it is very fair to scan that social media, make sure they have professional, network that you think is reputable, and that they have endorsements and things like that. So it's not that you've already had your own impression of this person and you already have taken notes that this is the way we're going with this person. So. And then the other pitfall is, I think people rely much too heavily on this tool, especially the job seeker. I think sometimes it is very tempting to sit behind a computer for 4 or 5 hours a day and look for jobs, rather than looking for conferences to attend, rather than attending some GIS, user groups in your area, and calling in to a company who may have an interesting position and talking with the hiring manager, the HR manager. So we have to remember that those traditional ways of introducing ourselves professionally still stand, and we need to be sure that we're utilizing all of those, and then that social media is only a portion of what we're doing there. So that is pretty much our entire take on everything. We're hoping that some of you do have questions for us as things go by. But and one of the questions that I have for you, and anybody who wants to chime in either the chat box or the question box, if any of these pitfalls ring true to you, or kind of how if you have any additional questions on how you're utilizing social media. So I'm going to turn my camera back on. Chelsea and Dave, hopefully you'll join us too as people kind of chime in here, and we can have a conversation about that. Dave, have you seen an increase in Twitter or Facebook in terms of professional networking and such from where you sit?
LinkedIn still seems to be the place. One of the advantages with Twitter, of course, is, it's the place where the hashtag was invented. And so being able to search for topics that way, I know you all always tag your posts with hashtag GeoSearch, sometimes, hashtag GIS careers, and that can be really helpful. One of the questions that I regularly get is how often and what do you post on LinkedIn? And from a marketing angle, if you're trying to sell something, well, you take in who your target market is. And so as a job seeker, well, who is the market that you're selling yourself to? And what are they interested in? What articles can you curate that are providing helpful knowledge of the industry? What are some articles that you can write and publish on LinkedIn that leverage and reveal your own skills and showcase your knowledge of the industry?
Right. And I see a lot of people, there's a handful of people that I know on LinkedIn that I've never met, excuse me, that have a reputation within, the geospatial community as being a resource for different information or technology or training, things like that. And I think some of us who are familiar with this sector can certainly name 4 or 5 people who have really branded themselves professionally over time.
Well, and speaking of personal branding, there are a couple other less known, somewhat, they're kind of, YouTube is social media now, so the topic of social media categorizing it's kind of big, but there is a place called about.me and brand.me, which are both places where you can, again, publish who you are, publish your credentials, and that gives one more item that can show up in the search engines to reveal who you are to people who are looking.
So, and do you see, this is another question coming in actually, do you see, I used to be involved in a lot of user groups that were mostly technical. And of course, I was the one poking my head in to see if anybody wanted a job. But for the most part, they were technical conversations. These were developers or GIS professionals sharing information regarding their day-to-day tasks, helping each other overcome issues. Are you seeing LinkedIn being used mostly for that now, or?
LinkedIn groups are starting to die off a little bit, which is really interesting. And I think part of it is Facebook groups are picking up. And so that would be something that, depending on the industry that the person is in, they may want to do some looking and see, how active are the LinkedIn groups? Are there some Facebook groups that are a better fit for the industry for conversation there?
Okay, great.
And then, of course, the Twitter groups that you mentioned as well, that you can get almost a digest version of it to dial in later.
Right. And I find that helpful in terms of keeping up with LinkedIn groups. I still get some that are kind of sent to me on a weekly basis with just a digest version. But I also noticed the activity on those groups have gone down a lot. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's the feed scenario or something. But I see a lot more conversations on feeds than I used to, too. If somebody posts a cool new gadget that their company is using and they have that, then I see people commenting and asking questions about that product and that sort of thing. So. I also had somebody call me the other day and goes, I can't believe I'm talking to you. I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity. So obviously we're on LinkedIn quite a bit. And I do think sometimes you have to remember that all these are real people and they're all, and mostly they're being, they're putting jobs or they're putting information out there for you to interact with. And the more you do so, the more you will be noticed and appreciated for that. So.
Yeah.
Well, and there are some other tools too that you can utilize to maintain an active presence without having to spend your whole life there. Both Hootsuite and Buffer provide platforms where you can set up posts that will automatically go out, and they'll even help you with the scheduling of the time on that. So that's another way to go, because really for LinkedIn, to be active on it and for people to see your posts, you need to post once a day. And I know some people say, wow, once a day, that's a lot. And it is, but that's the way the algorithm is set up there. Facebook and Twitter, they've kind of dialed back, and they're not revealing as much content, in part because their feeds have gotten so crowded. So they're bringing that back to more, a couple times a week for a general post, and then if you're in a discussion, well, the discussion will pace itself in that way.
Well, and all of that is routine, right? So if you're looking for, a job, or you're looking for new employees and you're advertising your company positions or whatever, that's what we're talking about when you want to post often. And then is that also true, Dave, if you share or if you comment on other things? Is that true in LinkedIn in terms of
with LinkedIn? We have a daily checklist, and I'd be happy to send it out to anybody. You have my email on the screen there, and we have a checklist that we send out for people to do daily, to do weekly, and tasks to do monthly, to be present, to be connected, to be able to create yourself as an influencer there. So yeah, LinkedIn is something I spend at least 15 to 30 minutes on every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
A good rule of thumb.
And about connections. So I've got questions about, who should you accept as a connection on LinkedIn? I, as a recruiter, pretty much accept everybody who asks me. I think in the beginning of LinkedIn, I would kind of accept anybody, and now I've started limiting myself to people who are in the US, or if they're not in the US, they have to be very geospatial focused, only because I don't feel like I can be of any assistance to them otherwise. And so there's not really any need for that. But do you have a rule of thumb as to how to ask people to connect, and best practices for that, and then how many you should accept?
Well, best practice is LinkedIn allows you the ability to put in a message there, and you can lay out, why you're interested in connecting with that person. You've already glanced at their profile, hopefully, and something stands out. With Facebook, that's, a little trickier there, and ideally there you want to at least have some connections in common. And well, Twitter, as we discussed, it's somebody you just want to follow and connect with. For me, especially on LinkedIn, I look for connections in a couple of categories, and this is, again, based on my marketing business, that I'm looking for people that are in my target market. So that's typically a business owner or a director of marketing. And I'm looking for people who would be good partners, referral partners. So people who would engage with the same type of people that I'm looking for. So for a job seeker or somebody trying to brand themselves in their career, you again ask those questions. Who's helpful for me to be connected with? Do I need to be connected with 30 realtors? Maybe not. If you're in the mapping area, commercial realtors might be somebody to be connected with. Residential, maybe not so much.
Unless you want to be
it's digging in. Say again.
Unless you want to be a drone UAV pilot. The realtors are using those a lot now.
Yeah, residential realtors. I know one guy who actually flies through houses with a small drone, and does a virtual tour that way. So yeah, it really depends on what are your goals there, and who can help you get to those goals, and just stepping back and taking a look at that.
And it's a good one to be selective. You can be selective, absolutely, on who you're choosing to be connected with on LinkedIn. And that's something at first that I was, just inviting people to connect, anyone, friends that I had in the past. And that's really not the space you want to do that. That would be more for Facebook. So.
Right. Okay, well, if that is all the questions, we'll put one more call out if anybody else has a question that they'd like to ask. I think we've answered everything that so far has come in, and hopefully that has been helpful. Do you two have anything else to add before we close out?
Only if any of the three of us can be of help to you, feel free to reach out and connect with us via email. Find us on LinkedIn, send a connection request, maybe with a note saying, hey, was on the webinar, would like to connect with you, to let us know that you're a safe person and not some spy from the Soviet Union or something.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, thank you everyone for attending. Of course, our contact information is listed. You can reach out to us via email or anything. Give us a call. As we said, don't always rely on social media, and let us know if we can help you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.